So today we are joined with a creative that has so extensive experience in this industry. It's such an honor to have him here with us. I'm so happy. I'm so happy. This is our conversation number 10. And thank you so much for joining us, Emile. Could you please just introduce yourself?
Yeah, so my government name is Emile Jansen. My family surname is Jansen. I, as a performer, changed it to YX ? So the X is my family surname. Jansen is actually a slave of Jansen, or property of. So I come from people who were both slaves and First Nation people, and everyone else that came to the port city of Cape Town. So, and I did a DNA test, and I'm exactly that, from everywhere everyone has come from, except for North and South America, which is ironic because I'm in North America at the moment as well. So that's my my family heritage is vast, like most people in Cape Town. But I'm involved in hip hop since 1982. Next year will be 40 years. I was like, damn, 40 years of hip hop.
Oh my goodness.
But I'm also a qualified school teacher. I taught for 3.5 years before I decided to follow my passion, and I haven't gone back. So I've just survived with my creative ability, and so that's me in a very small nutshell.
Oh my, I just love it. I love how you put everything together, especially how you said you want to survive in your creative abilities, and that's something very important, and that's a whole idea why I started this platform, because I believe we can survive with our creative abilities. So can you just also take us through your journey? Like, how did you start? What made you just wake up one morning and leave teaching and jump into your creative abilities?
It wasn't that quick. It was I had been I put up when I started dancing. This is before hip hop. I was copying Michael Jackson, who actually was copying the streets in the United States. So all of that you saw in the moonwalk and all that moves, he took from what was happening in Black America, And so by the time breakdancing came around, I was like, I want to do that, because it's everything that's from Black America, that's the epitome of cool, right? Everyone wants to be like them, and they were the most free in our minds. I mean, it's not true. It is a struggle in the United States as a African American, but for me, it was like, I'm here in apartheid South Africa, and that looked much more free than what we were. So I want to do that. And so we formed a crew with breakdancing. By 1985, with the uprisings at the schools, the number of kids took a dive. And so we were still dancing, but then by 88, we created Black Noise, the rap group, and created perform, because by that time we were already doing breakdance performances, so we just added beatboxing and rapping to it, so you could get paid for being on stage longer, right? And then by the time I started studying, I was already reading Black consciousness books, that people had sent me, because I had written to pen pals in the US. They'd send me photocopies, and I'd be like, how can I be teaching African kids to be good little Europeans? How can I do this? This is so wrong. I was fighting myself, right? Which is ironic, because till this very day, our education system is very Eurocentric, because the information isn't pro-African, And so I was like, I don't want to do this. I want to get out of teaching, because I can't be an accomplice. But at the same time, I was like, how am I going to survive, And I remember telling, because my mom's a school teacher, and my dad's does a lot of different jobs. So, but I mean, his main job was this bookbinder with the city of Cape Town, and so, but he was also a well-known soccer player and coached soccer. He's been doing that most of his life as the main thing. His passion is that, but he did more than one thing. So from learning from my dad, I was like, I don't want to sideline what I love. Although my mom was like, how are you going to pay bills, you know? And so from that, and which is like what you said, is how do you survive? Because we taught to think like this, get one job, and they were trying to pay everything with that one job. And so immediately I started, which was kind of, my mom's words were, if you leave teaching, you paying rent, you're not hanging around here for free. I was like, oh damn. And so, which is a good thing that she did that, because it made me think, like every month I used to go exchange, like I used to collect people's newspapers in the community. I collect bottles and scrap metal. Like I felt like I was a hobo, like going to the to the dump and going to like sell these things, right? And then making money from it. And then I also by that time had started The Juice, which is a hip hop magazine. Like this is 93, I started that. And so people were writing to me from around the country, and like Zimbabwe and like Tanzania, and because everyone wanted to know what hip hop was about, right? And so I had a little bit of information, so I was sharing with them the information, and it was a cut and paste. So like I type out the story and then cut it and like paste it in, because I didn't have a computer. And then I just photocopied the story, and people loved it. They were like, you know, this is informative, you know. But when I did that, people would send me from America, people found out about the magazine and sent me like boxes of CDs and like clothes. And I was like, damn. And I would sell it. I was like, yo, I had to pay rent. I'm selling these songs. And, I gotta pay rent. I don't care, right? Anyway, so from that, I learned that, like, you know, I would like change paper. So it moved from this to be this. So like how many income streams can I create? Like I call it diversifying your income streams, right? But like, okay, I'll change bottles, scrap metal, you know, newspapers, I'd sell my CDs, I'd sell the book, I'd, you know, teach breakdancing classes, I'd in the meantime prepare Black Noise and get shows for Black Noise. And so with time, that model made me realize that, you know, if you like most people like, yo, they want to make $1 million, but they don't know that there's 1,000 rands in $1 million. That's all it is. And when you break it down like that, people are like, what? Because a lot of people who work, they've had 1,000 rand, but they're like, it's only 1,000 times. So yeah, that's it, you know. And so once I'm able to see that, I'm like able to like, yo, I want to buy a car. How much shows must I do? How much, you know, like how much of this diversifying? And then I start make like button badges and like t-shirts. And so, you know, and so my goal was like, if I had 50 forms of income and I just with each of them raise 20,000, that's $1 million. I was like, yo, that's what I'm gonna do.
Oh wow.
So anyway, that was in the back of my head, obviously, because I had to prepare this crew. And so with Black Noise, I'd go out and I'd, you know, perform, but in the process also see like, you know, we could create the shows ourselves, and then we'd organize big events and shows, and then in that way, but all the time having fun doing it. So like the agenda of trying to raise $1 million wasn't at the forefront. It was like, I saw that, but I was like, I'm buying a car, I'm gonna buy my folks' house, I'm gonna, you know, and with each one I'd like tick it off, like, okay, I got the car. And like you see, this distraction, my brother wants to kick my butt because I've been doing this for the last 10 years. Right? So me, I don't care. Like I don't care about fashion. I don't care about clothes. I don't care about material stuff, right? But I'm telling you that because I was sponsored by Adidas, I was sponsored by Puma, and I'd only keep one of the outfits they'd sponsored, because this is before people gave money. They just gave you clothes. So I'd like say, okay, this is the outfit I'm wearing for the next year. And I'd be like, everything else, like all the shoes they gave, all the t-shirts, I'd like, people would be lined up like, Emile, how much does that cost? How much? I'd sell it, you know. And then like Adidas, actually I had an account with Adidas that I'd go in and buy things at discount, you know. And like, which is kind of weird because most people who speak to artists who are like, you know, wanting to be famous, like I was like, yo, I don't care about that. It's just how do you survive? Like that'd be the bottom line. How do you survive? How do you pay the book? Because that's the first thing most people need. It's like to cover their survival cost. to and then once they think we're having a bit of problem with the internet, but once you cover your survival cost, now you're able to like focus on your goal, you know what I mean? And so I was very, I call it the mathematics of survival. Like I figured all of that out, like while my mother was in the background. You better pay your monthly rent. I was like, all right. And at one point I was like, you know what, just rent for the next 10 years. She was like,
oh my goodness.
She was like, I actually said that because I want you to leave, not stay.
So, oh my goodness.
So for me, it's also about like artists not getting caught up in the idea of fame, you know, because what's your purpose? You're passionate about being an artist, and you wanting to keep doing what you love. Like that's the second thing. And you want to, you don't need more than those basic things, right? And like the more you, which is the other thing which I find kind of weird, is that so many artists, they never satisfied. They constantly want more and more and more and more. And like in the end, they destroy their own career because they are unable to sustain the lifestyle that they chose, you know. And so for me, it was like, how do I be an example to the kids that is my community, that you can do this, you can be creative and survive, and then also that you can put back into your community and help to change, not just for the other people in your community. Like how can you help like the next generation of people, or just be an example so that other kids, like I mean, there's kids that are at the moment are traveling like internationally because they saw us do it, you know. And when they asked us, we explained like, yo, when you go on tour and they give you a stipend, don't spend the money, pack in at breakfast, enough for lunch and supper. Yeah. all the hacks on how to survive as an artist, you know. And in their mind is also this idea that I want to do this because I love it. I don't want to do this because I'm expecting to be a multimillionaire overnight, you know. It's what's your passion, and making that the priority, you know, versus like I'm chasing money is my objective. Because people who, as long as you chase money, it will run. You know what I mean? It will keep running away from you. It is when you're doing what you love that things come, you know. And the best example is, I learned this from my sister. She says to live with an open hand, because if you live with an open hand, you can get, but you can also give. If you live with your hand closed, nothing can enter. Like you're holding on to it, but it's not going to have value for long, and so nothing can enter that space. So yeah, so it's a major lesson that my sisters like passed on to me from like just passing. When I tell her, she said, "When did I tell you that?" I was like, I don't know, maybe maybe it wasn't important to you, but it was important to me at that moment.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Anyway.
I'm just so inspired by, like, you're so resourceful. Like, I never really thought about how a million is broken down. Like, you know, now I'm thinking about it actually. Like, you're very resourceful, and I love how you speak about passion driving you, because I feel like many creatives, when they get the money, they eventually forget about the passion and why they started whatever journey they're on. And reading about your work that you've done so much in the community, and I see you very clear about giving back to the community, putting back to the community. When I read your story, why is it that you're so passionate about giving back to the community?
Yeah, I am, because of like my community, you know. So and when I say my community, it starts where I grew up, but it expands. Like I've done this exact same thing in Sweden, and I've done it in the US where my wife and kids are at the moment. And people in both of those spaces are like, they baffled by like because the idea of me as an artist is like, look at all of what you've done. You deserve to, like almost like in their minds, from the examples that they see, people hold on to what they have. You know what I mean? And the example is probably of like Jeff Bezos flying to space when the world is in like dire need of help, you know, and so that's sold by capitalism as like, which kind of ironic, upward mobility because they went into space. But like in truth, I see that as being extremely uncivilized and extremely greedy, you know, and also not being considerate of the entire like global family, you know, and like for what purpose, you know, why would you have more than like some people, and including people like that, have more money than a country has, you know, and there is enough. And I've learned this from the Bushman community, that all you need is enough. And so you have to, people who never have enough don't understand what enough is, you know, and also they are bottomless pits of nothingness. It's like you can't, if something is, it can't be filled, it's like, you know what I mean, you're going to constantly throw something in it, and the only thing that can fill it is actually themselves. Like only when they go into themselves and feel that they are enough, then they don't need anything, you know. And so people find that concept very difficult to understand in a capitalist society, because they're always wanting to sell us the next thing. It's always the next thing, the next thing. So they have to make you feel like you need it. But when, and if you think about like how the planet, like with climate change and what's happening on the planet, it's because we are living in a society that is lacking. People are not taught that as you are completely enough. And the South African Bushmen actually, like if you try and give them something, like back in the day, they would pass it on to the person that needed it. If they didn't need it, like if you give them a jacket and they're like in the desert, they're like, why are you giving me a jacket? You know, like it's easier for me to just like, it would be better for me to burn this to give us heat at night than for me to carry this with me because I don't need it, you know, or you just see it laying somewhere because they don't need it, you know. And so it's not a very, what's the word? I guess not a very needy people. And that's why the Dutch and the people who came to South Africa find it hard for them to get them to work. To be like, for what? Like nature gives me everything. Why should I work for you for the same thing that nature could give me? Nah, for a piece of paper, for gold that's laying there over here. We saw that in one of our travels, you know. Or if someone said, yeah, give you a diamond, they're like, the ostriches eat the diamonds. We don't care about those, you know what I mean? So it's like reading about this First Nation way of thinking, in my belief, is that they were more civilized than the Europeans that came here. They didn't believe in ownership of land. They believed that they belonged to the land, that the land owned them. So when you have that relationship, you make sure that the land is okay, because you are its property. You know, you belong to the land. So you want to make sure the land is kept. I mean, that's why the First Nation people all over the world, they moved around to not exploit one place. Like they live in a place, then they start worrying because they're destroying the natural environment. Then they move to another place so that that place can recover, you know. So they lived in a very considerate way with nature. And often when they said something like mother wind, or all of these things were very, they gave it human qualities, you know. And so they were very respectful of those things. Whereas Europeans, they just like plundered and took and extracted and mined and destroyed, and it's still like that. Yeah. Nice. You know. And so my thinking at the moment is that those people, and like a lot of the work I do with kids in Cape Town is to get them back to that. Like, and they initially a lot of them were like, oh, come on, Emile, we civilization, we're moving on, we're progressing. And then I'll be like, but this is part of your language. And they're like, no, it's not. And I say, when you speak as a South African, you say and they're like, yeah. And when you disagree, you say and they're like, what is that? We're like, but that, and I tell them that both of those are words, actually. Those are words in Khoikhoi Gowab. It's a Bushman language, right? And is yes and is no. And then in the language of Kaaps in Cape Town are words that are from the Bushman community, like Abba and Khocha and Kriki and Kwacha and Tacha and Aitsa. And like there's so many words that are part of, because the language was created by the First Nation people in Cape Town. It wasn't created by the Boers. The Boers actually stole the name Afrikaner from this people, And so anyway, so all of this, when I teach this to kids, they're like, oh, this is not how we've always been, And so it's to give them a sense of belonging, that they're African, that this is where their ancestors are from, and that, even the people who came here originally came from Africa. Like all people move from Africa to the rest of the world, right? And so for me, it's like a lot of that information gives a sense of self. And once you're proud of yourself and you know where you are, then you don't have this hole that you're constantly trying to fill. Like, am I going to, like people often like, why, Emile, why do you wear your hair? And they be like, your hair is so wild. I'm like, this is how it grows. Like, I do nothing to it. I just let it grow. And so people, then the question is like, who came with this idea that you have to look a certain way? Like often people are like, why didn't you straighten it? You know how long it would be? It can like blow in the, I was like, what? So these are enforced thinking, like on us from outside, our ideas of beauty, our ideas of what looks good. Anyway, so yeah, that's really why I do the work, is because I like to see more young people feel a sense of being enough, yeah.
I'm so moved.
And that's my brother walking by at the back.
I'm so moved. Like you covered everything that I wanted to ask. I'm so moved. I like how you really covered it. Like you've got so much like experience, like I said, like you've covered everything. I love how you spoke about contentment, because we lack a sense of contentment in society. Yeah. We are not content. We're always looking for more. We are never where we are. We are never content with where we are. So that for me resonated so much. And how you also preserving our African heritage, and you preserving it using children. And that's what we need, because who else is the future generation? It's the children. So for me, I am very moved. And once again, you emphasize the importance of Africans for African solutions. Africans have always been on this planet, on this on this continent. Exactly. Yes, we've always existed. So this is our continent. We need to, like you used the illustration of the Bushmen, that they are content, and the land belongs to them. It's not the other way around. We're not fighting for this. Do you get what I mean? So hence I feel like you just resonated everything. And my last question to you is, how do you want to be remembered?
Yeah, I don't know about that. Like before it used to be like, I want to be remembered, but now it's just like, if what I say and do can live on in other people, like, and especially with this the kids, and that it impacts over time, impacts generations from now. It's also not me. That's what I'm saying. I used to think like, I want to be remembered, and like, but it's at a point where I'm like, I am saying what they have said before us, like I'm almost feel like I'm a channel for ancestry to continue, and hopefully the next person will do the same, that we pass on this energy that gets us back to being human. Because I feel like capitalism has made us, like you said, this contentment is disappeared, and we constantly think that the solution is out there, when in truth the solution is within us, where we can sit in complete peace and be enough as we are. And often when you watch people from different cultures, and especially like First Nation people, or even like people who did yoga, and yoga itself also comes before the like Indian community did it. Like First Nation people actually sat in silence, and they felt and listened to themselves breathe. And as they did that, they understood that they would both be that wind at one stage. They would become that. And this is, you know, there's a story, end of the story, that they believe that the wind blows breath into you, right? And that it's only borrowed for while you're here. And that every word that you ever speak is set free on the wind. And so she's out there and she has collected every thought and every idea that you have uttered. And so they say to speak carefully of intention, because you put out like bad intention, it blows on the wind and it stays out there. And once you pass, like there's a assessment of your collective intentions you put out there, right? And so, and then when you know more, the wind comes and takes the breath from you again, right? Which is and it's not just the Bushmen, but like a lot of First Nation people believe that, you know, that the breath is given and the wind, and they call it a she. They say you shouldn't speak. And we in Cape Town, so there's this wind constantly blowing. And I used to tell my wife this as well. I say, every morning she used to say, "Ah, this wind is ridiculous." And I'm like, yo, don't speak badly about the wind. Yeah. She's like, will you stop with that story? But so for me, it's like that's, I try and remember that, because when I speak, and I as a kid, I didn't speak much. I was very shy to speak in public, you know. And now, so when I do speak, I almost feel I have to hold myself accountable for my words, and I have to hold myself accountable that the words manifest into action. Because politicians are masters at hot air and wind. So I try to actually, you know, implement like that, you know, my thoughts become manifest, that they become real, you know, and that if I speak it, I have to do it, you know. So that's what I try and do, and I hope with that example that others will follow that example, that if they're going to speak it, they actually speak something into reality. And it's biblical to a certain extent. Like in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was made man. So it's a, you know, anyway. Yeah, I hope that answered your question.
Oh my goodness, I'm so moved. Thank you so much. I've learned so much from you, and you spoke on accountability, which is something very important. And I'm also taking that away as an individual, to be accountable to whatever I say, whether I'm being accountable for saying I started this because I want young people to connect themselves to opportunities, better opportunities. I need to be accountable for that. So for this is like a reminder to me as well to remain accountable. And yes, it's such an honor. It was such an honor to have you. And I thank you so much, Emile, for your time. Like, thank you. Enjoy your day. Thank you.
You as well.
Bye.
Okay. Bye.